Hey Hatchlings, it's DragonFeather and welcome back to the channel, and on today's episode I wanted to cover something that I have been really excited about for a while called DragonFae Wicca and Witchcraft. This is like a hybrid of draconic practices and like fairy practices in Wicca and Witchcraft, and is kind of under the umbrella of like mythical magic, which is something that I personally practice a lot, which is just working with mythical creatures in your magical craft. With that being said, if you're new here, merry meet, I am Azura. I post new videos every week and they're magical, so don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss an upload, hopefully. Ding! Just kind of a disclaimer, I totally have like done this like with my own experimentation. I haven't really been able to find anything else or like any resources on specifically using dragons and fairies in Wicca and Witchcraft as its own thing. Yes, on set like separately, I've seen that, but not as like a hybrid put together. We're just gonna jump right on into this, starting with the Wicca aspect and then with the Witchcraft aspect and merging like the dragons and fairies into both of them. So for those of you guys who are unaware of what Wicca is, it is a nature-based religion that consists of a belief in a god and a goddess. For the most part, there are some variations that are not like this. We'll be going under that general overview for this particular video. It also incorporates witchcraft as well as working with the elements of earth, air, fire, water, and you guessed it, spirit. And of course there's much more that goes into Wicca, and I have many videos on Wicca if you are interested in learning about Wicca specifically, but we're just gonna take the basic like overview of Wicca and kind of plug dragons and fairies into that. So how do you do that? I get questions from you guys a lot about incorporating fairies into your witchcraft as well as incorporating dragons into your witchcraft, and particularly in Wicca. For some of you guys, Draconic Wicca may just not feel like it covers the most of what you do. For many of you guys work with fairies as well as other mythical creatures, but in my personal practice, I have been very, very heavily connected to dragons my whole life, but only very recently, I would say like in the past like 5 years or so, I've really been called to working with the Fae. And this is something that I've never really identified with fairies growing up, but I think that's because in the mainstream media, fairies were like Tinkerbell, if that makes sense. I view the dragon as very masculine energy, very godly energy. So I associate the dragon with the god aspect, and I associate fairies with feminine energy, or with the goddess aspect of this practice. What I mean by this is when I would call upon the god and the goddess within my like Wiccan circle, if you will, I would call upon the divine dragon god and the divine fairy goddess. Moving from there, you have the masculine and the feminine aspect, and I know for many of you guys that can feel very dysphoric to have it segregated that way. For many of you guys, it's also very helpful to have it segregated that way. Again, please realize that like it doesn't matter how you identify or how you choose to practice. It's totally your choice on how to make it all mesh and malleable together. Like your practice is your own, so I'm just pretty much going off of like my own personal experience with using dragons and fairies in Wicca and Witchcraft. So I hope that can clarify that for you. When it comes to the elements, we have the masculine elements, which are fire and air, both of which I associate with the dragon, being the fire breather, hello, and they have wings, they can fly, hello, hi, how you doing? I've always kind of associated dragons more with the element of air, and I'll get into that in a later video just because I associate the phoenix more with fire when I work with mythical magic. But coming from the perspective of just dragons and fairies, I definitely associate dragons with the elements of fire and air. So they are the divine masculine elements, and the dragon being the divine god representation would go for that as well. When it comes to fairies, they are the feminine elements, or the elements of earth and water. And this makes a lot of sense because the majority of the fairies that we see are doing what? They're either nymphs and dancing around in the water, or they are like elves or tending to the growth of the land. Most of the time you'll see fairies with flowers, at least in mainstream media for my experience. If you have any other like fire fairy or like air fairy like mainstream media, I would love to see it. So please leave a link down below if you know of anything. However, it's really up to you what you resonate with more, because in draconic practices, typically in the clans in the draconic realm are led by the more feminine presenting dragons. And it's kind of like totally off topic, but dragons don't have genders. They're kind of like gender fluid, I guess, is the only way I could say it. Like, they don't need to have genders because they're not sexually reproducing anything. They're spiritual entities. Therefore, they are just like high vibrational energy beings of light. They don't need to physically have sex in order to produce an egg. It doesn't make sense. I hope you know that it doesn't make sense. And the same thing with fairies. They're also energetic beings as well. So if fairies feel more masculine to you and dragons feel more feminine to you, then again, that's just like your thing. In my practice, this is how it has been. The dragon is seen in the air and the fire, and the fairy is seen in the water and the earth. That's what I meant to say. When it comes to spirit, that is the divine union of the masculine and feminine energies, making it like a neutral or like a genderless gender, I don't know. The all-encompassing gender. What am I talking about?
Let me fix the hair, because I just don't care.
If you were to cast a fire spell, you would call upon the dragon to assist you with this. If you were casting a like water spell or a healing spell, you would call upon the fairy to help you with this. That's just kind of how it's been in like my dabbling of this practice. When you call upon the elements in your craft, when it comes to DragonFae Witchcraft, you can approach it in one of three ways. The first way is you can invoke all of the dragons of the elements and all of the fairies of the elements simultaneously. This meaning that you would call upon the elemental dragon guardians. If you are interested in learning more about them, I'll leave my link down below to the video and master post that I have made all about them. They are specifically mostly for Draconic Wicca. I know some Draconic witches that just use it who like don't identify as Wiccans, but not everyone does, so just like know that. And when it comes to invoking all of the different types of fairies, then you would call upon a fairy of each element. So those of you guys who are unaware, the different types of like elemental fairies, we have the earth fairy, which is the gnomes, we have the water fairy, which is the nymphs, we have the air fairies, which are the sylphs, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, and we have the fire fairies, which are the salamanders. And a lot of people might think that salamanders are dragons, but they're not, they're fairies. Confusing. That being said, you can call upon those guys simultaneously. However, you can also choose to just call upon the dragons for a particular set of spells. Maybe your spell is more protection oriented, so when you call upon the elements, you only call upon the dragons. And for example, if you were like doing a healing spell, you would only call upon the fairies for the elements because it is, again, it's a healing spell. They specialize in healing. I hope that makes sense. Or you can do a hybrid of the two and call upon dragons and fairies for their respective elements that you resonate with them or assign to them or correspond to them or whatever. All are correct, okay? Like, all of them are valid and all of them work. It just depends on how you best connect, because that's what this is all about, is how you best connect to your spiritual practice, your spiritual path and craft. So when it comes to the holidays or the Sabbats, which are solar holidays, there are lesser Sabbats and greater Sabbats. So an example of a lesser Sabbat would be Litha, and an example of a greater Sabbat is going to be Samhain. I'm pretty sure you knew that one. Hi! Beltane is the first fire festival that is coming up here. If this video is not posted before Beltane, that's awkward, but if it's posted after Beltane, then it just passed. Hope you had a great holiday. What'd you do? Leave it in the comment down below. It is about the union of the divine goddess and god energies. And I really would love to touch on this because of how the whole Great Rite plays into it. And the Great Rite is, again, the union of the divine masculine and feminine energies. So for this particular holiday, you would call upon the divine dragon god and the divine fairy goddess to unify within you, within your path, within your craft, and to bring about fertility all around the world. So generally speaking, the fairy represents like nurturing energy. They are the ones that are beautiful, you know what I mean? Fairies are seen as very, very mysteriously magical, you know? The elves are seen as like godly beauty, you know what I mean? There's fairy queens and kings, and they are just simply divine and utterly breathtaking, correct? But dragons, on the other hand, are typically menacing, more so scary, and guardians, you know, the dragon guards the princess in the castle, the dragon guards, you know, Yggdrasil at the bottom of its roots, you know, like all of these things. Okay, the dragons are usually kind of where the fairies are like, oh hi, I'm so cute. That's really the worst that's the worst example I could have given you, but I hope that the point came across. That's what I'm trying to do here. If you see these two completely, totally opposite energies unify and complement each other very, very beautifully. The dragon loves his fairies, loves to watch them dance and frolic and play, loves to watch them be innocent and full of laughter and keeps them safe, where the fairy loves her dragon. She worships him, gives all that she can, she entertains him, she does all of these things, so to speak. These two completely opposite energies come together to bring forth life, death, and rebirth. And that's kind of like how it all ties into, you know, the divine god and the divine goddess, if that makes sense. There's so much more that encompasses Wicca, you know, that I just like couldn't actually fit into one entire video when it comes to working with dragons and fairies. This video is more so like an introduction to showcase how you can use the polar opposite or the duality of the dragon and the fairy, plugging it into the duality that we see within Wicca and witchcraft in many instances. Now, it is not necessary to have this duality in your practice. I want to make that very clear because I know it really harms a lot of people. And this is for those who use the dragon and the fairy to represent these energies when you may feel like not so much of a connection to a god or a goddess, if that makes sense. Don't really feel so super connected to a god or a goddess in particular. While I do have a matron goddess, it's not like it's not the kind of connection that I feel to like fairies and dragons and elves and phoenixes and unicorns. Like, it's never ever been that strong of a connection as my ones with the mythical creatures are. They are the foundation of my craft and practice. Obviously, as a draconic witch, I practice mostly with dragons, and the other mythical creatures kind of come along in that because they're all interconnected. For those of you guys who are unaware, the dragons are the guardians of the fairy realms. They are the guardians and the gatekeepers to the different realms of realities, and there is a dragon present in almost every mythology around the world, and same thing with fairies. There are more prevalent, like, popular myths in other cultures, and some of them have like completely different, you know, things like that, like yokai and stuff, but they're all kind of like, it's all relevant because like there's some sort of like fairy and dragon present in cultures that couldn't have ever even had contact in the ancient world, meaning that it's very much a part of the human experience that validates the practice, if that makes sense. Not that you would need the historical evidence to back your practice. You know, you can make up whatever the heck you want and practice it, and that's just valid, okay? Just so you know. Just so you know. That's kind of a basic overview of how to incorporate the dragon and the fairy into your Wiccan practices, but let's move on a little bit more to the witchcraft side of it, because, you know, witchcraft goes into the Wicca, but at the same time, not all Wicca goes into the witchcraft, just so you know.
How many times have we been over this? But if you're new, hi, hello, please subscribe because we have this discussion at a good time. Yes, Dragon Fairy, we have fun here, yes.
My Etsy store is called DragonFae Crafts, and that's because when I do my witchcraft, I am calling upon the dragon and the fairy most of the time when I'm crafting. Of course, I call in the phoenix and the unicorn and other creatures as well, but it's mostly this divine duality that I see with the dragon and the fairy that I so deeply connect to and resonate with. I feel like the dragon really captures the masculine sides of who I am, where the fairy really captures the feminine side of who I am. And when I feel like I'm not girly enough, or when I feel like I'm not like manly enough, you know, I know that might sound weird coming from a female or someone who identifies as a female. The reality is like there is like this programmed like duality in our society, right? And we associate certain things with like this energy or that energy. It just happens. When I feel like I'm not strong enough, I will go ahead and call upon the dragon. When I feel like I'm not like clean enough, is that
the right word? Maybe that's not the right word. If I don't feel like I am like taking proper care of myself, if I feel like I'm not nurturing enough to myself.
There we go. That makes more sense. And I call upon the fairy to help me you know, embody that for myself. And this is just what has helped me in my practice. Maybe it can help you in your practice. Those of you practitioners who just use dragons or who just use fairies or who work with both in your craft, please let me know how you feel about this duality and if you do see how this works in the craft, or if you've tried something similar and like didn't really have a name for it. I would absolutely love to hear it because it is something so, so, so powerful in my practice. What really prompted my journey on like kind of experimenting with dragons and fairies in Wicca and witchcraft was this particular deck called the Oracle of the DragonFae by Lucy Cavendish. I have talked a lot about this deck, and if you're interested in like a full-on deck review, I would love to do one. It's the deck that I go to the most often. I feel the strongest connection to it. I'm normally giving readings out with this deck. I actually do give like Theron and Otherkin readings with this deck. Well, mostly Otherkin readings with this deck because it's more mythical creature based, and I do like the Theron readings with my Animal Wisdom Tarot, but that's a different thing. This deck has a lot of symbolism and a lot of like magical like application when it comes to working with dragons and fairies in your craft, and I want to pull the card out of this deck that really showcases how like the dragon and the fairy really kind of like mesh well together. Card that really screams like DragonFae magic to me in this deck is this card right here. Gonna not get my ring light on it for you, but this card right here, which is Gaia's Dragon, and the message at the bottom is Divine Union. And when I think of dragons and fairies together, I think of divine union. It very much screams like horned god and like triple goddess, you know what I mean? Like fairies have all these different like faces and facets to them, you know, like the whole maiden mother crone thing I think is very relevant to the fairy. And of course the horned god, like dragons, hello horns, hi. How you doing? They're a little horny. So that's kind of how I feel about this in particular, is because like if you just look at how beautiful she is, how glowing and radiant she is, how she's pregnant with new life, you know, and the dragon, how he's menacing and all-encompassing and there to protect her. You know what I mean? And of course, you gotta give a shout out to that butterfly, which is just a little like, hey fairies, we see you. This is just probably one of my favorite cards in the deck. I mean, I love all the cards in this deck, but this one just really screams like, maybe there's something more to that divine union of the god being a dragon and the goddess being a fairy. And that's kind of what started all of this. But I'm getting off on a tangent, so before this video gets eons long, let's just kind of like dive into the witchcraft aspect. When it comes to witchcraft and working with dragons and fairies, there's really no rules. I mean, there's really no rules in any like practice that you choose to have if you choose it to be that way. Like, who am I to tell you that you're wrong? I mean, I ain't got that authority, girl. And either does Karen, neither does freaking Chad, okay? And if your name is Karen or Chad, it's not about your name. You are a beautiful individual. Thank you for listening to my TED Talk. Mwah. It's about incorporating their energies into your craft and how that really affects it. So like I was saying earlier, if you're gonna do a protection spell, you'd probably want to call upon a dragon, because dragons are what? Like the divine protectors of the universe. And when it comes to the fairy, it's about life-giving, you know what I mean? For example, the dragon really has for a very long time been misunderstood, and because many of the pagans would worship either horned gods like Baphomet, or they would worship deities like dragons, image was kind of taken by, you know, Christianity and twisted into the modern day image of the devil, which is just not accurate. So don't be calling my dragons demons.
That's some bullshit. That's rude, man. Don't be doing that. I don't call you demons, even though you might be. Just saying.
Reality is that they are the embodiment of chaotic darkness. And that might seem very terrifying. Like, why would I ever want to work with that? That sounds absolutely not for me. Not all dragons are like that, you know what I mean? It's just kind of like a very basic, like, umbrella, I guess, you know, and they all kind of like fall in their own little spots. Dragons are arcane magic. What does that mean? It means that they create things with their sheer willpower. That means that they are very like traditionally like destructive. You know, you see the dragon blowing fire destroy you. In Asian cultures, like for example the Shenlong, which is a dragon of weather, would either rain down massive like floods or cause insane droughts if you didn't worship them or please them properly. Savage. Like fairies are very elusive, and they are more like life magic, if that makes sense. I know there's a word for it. If I can find it, I'll put it on the screen. But they don't manipulate reality with their will. They take the natural magic of Mother Earth and use that to create life or to create something, where usually dragons are going to change something with their will, which is seen as destruction even if they're creating something. You know, it might seem kind of counterintuitive, but that's just kind of the thing, you know. I hope I make sense. Dragons are seen more as like the dark, like the darkness, where like the fairy is seen more as like the light. So dragons are seen more like death and destruction, where fairies are more like life and creation, and together they create rebirth and fertility, or rebirth, birth, you know what I mean. Like I said, this is really just a basic overview, and for example, when it comes to doing things like shadow work, not all shadow work is considered witchcraft, but the types of shadow work that I do is very much witchcraft. Most of the shadow work that I do is carving things onto a candle and burning that down. That is very, very draconic energy. Why? Because I'm using my will to change my past. I cannot change the past, but I can change how I remember it, and I can change how I perceive it. And by using my sheer will, I can let that go, right? But when it comes to healing myself after that shadow work, I call upon the fairies because I want to be nurtured in Mother Nature. I want her life-giving flow of love and light to help plant me as a new seed to grow from the ashes that was the destruction from the shadow work. Painful. This is kind of how the two energies play in together. They are one and the same, yet they're not one and the same, but they're like two sides of the same coin. You know, you cannot have light without darkness. You cannot have dragons without fairies, you know what I mean? That's kind of like how that all plays into it, and this practice has really been exacerbated ever since I accepted that I'm more than just dragonkin, I'm DragonFaekin.
Hello, I'm DragonFeather. Hello, I'm DragonFeather, the DragonFae otherkin.
This has been a practice that I have really truly used in order to kind of connect to that part of myself, but in no way, shape, or form do you have to use this practice of DragonFae magic to connect to yourself if you are a DragonFae otherkin. Like it's not like, they're not mutually exclusive, you know what I mean? Very much like from a spiritual standpoint when it comes to like otherkin, my otherkin identity, but not everybody is that way. I would say probably the majority isn't that way. It's more of like a psychological thing, which I will have a whole video on spiritual versus psychological otherkin and theorin because I get so many requests for it, but it's not for this video. And you want to change something with your will, that is more of a draconic energy. When you want to give like life or use the energy and essence of Mother Earth's energy to bring forth creation, that is going to be more like fairy magic. And I actually so much love LOCKSTIN. He is a Poke YouTuber out of all things, but he literally goes into how Pokemon like literally mirrors like all of these different like mythologies throughout like, you know, ancient cultures and all of that, and a lot of the Pokemon are like based off of these. And the most recent game, Pokemon Sword and Shield, there's Zacian and Zamazenta, which are like the two wolf deities, like the two wolf legendaries, excuse me, and the game is supposed to be based off of like, you know, the United Kingdom, right? And the United Kingdom has this like mythology of these wolves that chase the sun and moon and then eat them. That was a very watered down version of that mythology, but I'll leave all the links down below to anything that I've mentioned, and please go check out LOCKSTIN and Noggin's like explanation of like dragon magic versus fairy magic, because he does so well. He does so well at it, and the fact that there's like a dragon and fairy type in Pokemon is genius.
I love it so much.
Tone it down for a second there. But yeah, so basically that's the basic gist of DragonFae Wicca and Witchcraft. It is by no means a comprehensive like situation. This isn't really like a complete beginner's guide on how to start practicing this, but if you're interested in that, leave a like on the video and a comment down below on what you're interested in learning about more when it comes to this practice, because it is something that I definitely use like so prevalently in my craft, especially more so nowadays. I've moved more from being like just dragon centered to being more like DragonFae centered, with the incorporation of like phoenixes and unicorns and just all mythical creatures, which is why this is like going to be like a mythical magic video rather than just like a DragonFae Wicca Witchcraft video. But I just kind of wanted to make this video because we have lots of conversations about it in the Hatchling clan. If you haven't joined us yet, that would be awesome if you would go ahead and join us. The amino is down below. We're almost at 10,000 members and I'm having a really epic giveaway. We doing all these sorts of crazy things, and each hatchling who's a member over there will get 10 things from us. 10. I didn't say 10 hatchlings will get one thing. I said each one of you will get 10 things. So don't forget to go join the Hatchling clan if you want to kind of like dive deeper into these discussions. And of course this video will have a blog that like goes over more of like the DragonFae Wicca and Witchcraft as well, with a better breakdown. Like, I am so much better at writing than I am at just like speaking. I'm pretty good at speaking, but I just love to write. I am the writer. Yes. A witch who cannot spell. Sorry for the typos, because they're there. It's pretty much like the basic gist of it, and I hope that it was like an interesting way to like open up this conversation on the channel. And I would love to know if you guys work with mythical creatures in your practice, specifically dragons and fairies, and even more specifically if you mush the two of them together. Please let me know any resources you have down below, or any sorts of like tips or tricks or experiences, because I would just love to read that, because this is something that is really like valid and prominent in my practice currently, and has been for the past like year or so. Like done experimenting, and I had a couple friends that I would talk to this about regularly. My friends were more into fairies than they were dragons, and we kind of like helped each other get into like the opposite, if that makes sense. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to make a video about it because it's like really cool in my opinion. So if you guys liked the video, don't forget to hit the like button so you can see more videos like this one, and leave a comment down below about any of your dragon or fairy or DragonFae experiences, crafts, or practices in the comments down below, because mwah darling, I'd love to know. And then of course, if you love the videos and want to see them continue, then maybe consider hitting that blue join button at the bottom of this video or on my channel, as it is the channel membership here, and you get access to exclusive things and videos that you won't find anywhere else on the internet. But if my channel membership isn't really striking your fancy, then the best place to support me is on Patreon. There are tons of different tiers and price points for any hatchling and budget out there, and even just $1 a month really makes a difference. It ensures that I'm able to regularly create content for you guys, and especially all of your guys' support during quarantine has really sincerely humbled me and blown my mind away, and all I hope I can do for you is help your path, your practice, be a little bit less lonely. Of course, if you are not really interested in either of those, you can get my new book, What the Spell, which is a collection of 13 spells in my own personal practice that I have rewritten for you, the reader, to cast in the order and kind of experience through, and by the end of going through the book and casting these spells, you will be a master spellcaster. Really truly hope that you will consider supporting the channel, but if you cannot do it financially, then literally just watching my videos all the way through, hitting that subscribe button, the notification bell, liking this or disliking this, I see you. I appreciate your engagement, or leaving a comment down below, and of course sharing this video with a friend helps the channel more than you could ever imagine. So thank you guys so much for all of your support and choosing to spend some of your day with me today. It really means a lot. It's been a really trying time, you know, and I'm just like doing the best I can, but sometimes the best I can do is stay in bed. So yeah. Oh, I have a TikTok now, and if you are interested in seeing my TikToks, I make some like this. Huh? Please, please, not again. Please. Why? How? Where did the wings come from? Very funny. I know it's been a while, and I've been trying, and it's like, but come on, all this shit's been happening, and they call me Dragon Feather cause they know I'm real hot. They see me spitting fire cause they know I got a lot. So give me your follows and likes on the screen, cause mother of hatchlings is your dragon queen. Don't take it real slow, cause flying real fast is the only way to go. So I won't take heat from you or your cousin, cause when the beat drop they know I'm gonna come in. I feel like it's very cliche when I say I downloaded TikTok unironically and now I love it. So go check out the talk to see what's ticking. You guys all my love and positive energy for today, and remember to stay geeky, cheeky, and freaky little hatchling, because this is what we do. Yes. Have a good day. But until next time, blessed be and bye.
Just watch me, oh, you go, now you face your